Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Day 26 of the Chad Daybell case. Yes. Oh my word. Let me get my microphone over here. So Chad Daybell is on trial for the murder of Tylee Ryan, JJ Vallow, and his former wife, Tammy Daybell. His current wife, Lori Vallow Daybell, is facing trial for the murder of her former husband, Charles Vallow, and she has already been convicted of the first-degree murder of her children, Tylee Ryan, JJ Vallow, and for the first-degree murder of Tammy Daybell, and conspiracy to commit all those murders. So she's never going to see the light of day outside of the jail, except she gets this little free trip to Arizona to stand trial for Charles's death. So she's not in prison right now. She's in jail in Arizona facing those charges. I'm trying to fix these glasses. So the first person to testify yesterday, we're going to put these on because we're going to need these rose-colored glasses for Emma Murray's testimony because we need to see things through her eyes. You know what it means, rose-colored glasses, right? Looking at somebody unrealistically. Yeah, she had a very unrealistic view of her dad. Only seeing his good points, rose-colored glasses. Anyway, so she did say, you know, she's not subject to the exclusionary rule, which is something that the judge checks every time a witness takes a stand. The exclusionary rule is a rule that says you're not allowed to view, witnesses are not allowed to view any of the testimony until after they've given their own testimony. They can't attend the trial, they can't watch social media, they're not allowed to do any of that. And he inquires of every single witness, have you watched any of the trial? Have you discussed your testimony with anybody? But she's not subject to that because the exclusionary rule does not apply to family members of the victims. And, you know, her mom, Tammy, is a victim. So, but Chad Daybell, he wanted to drive home that Emma has not viewed any. You've not reviewed any of these proceedings? No, I haven't. Now, I will also tell you my view of her affect during this trial. First of all, she took the stand and her brother, Garth, her oldest brother, Garth, took the stand, and this is creating a lot of glare, right? So I've made my point. Yeah. Anyway, she's very bland. Both these kids, very much like their dad. No, just this flat affect. Just no. She got a little riled on cross-examination, but not much at all. I listened to her on 1.5 playback speed, and it sounded like normal person talking. Like, that's how slow she was talking. You know, very careful, very guarded about her answers. So she was careful to say that no one has told her what to say, that she met with John Pryor 3 times total. The last one was the night before when John Pryor met with her and her husband, Joseph, who testifies at the end of the day, Joseph Murray. He did not suggest any answers to her. He just simply told her to tell the truth. So she is currently, her and her husband are currently living in that house. That is creepy. You've got 3 kids. They've been married for 7 years. I'm going to combine some of the testimony. Joseph testified that they've been married for 7 years. They just had their 3rd child. So since all of this went down, she's had 2 more children. At the time, she had just had her 1st child and was not living in the Daybell house. And a lot of her testimony would seem to indicate she's been there. She was in the house, but no, she doesn't live there. She lives catty corner, whatever, southwest of their home. Not far, just across the street, catty corner. But now she's living in that house. You've got 3 kids running around this backyard where these 2 kids were found dead, buried. Anyway, so first thing they talked about was Well, let me go back to that real quick. John Pryor also was careful to say, now, you don't know that of any deal that I have or your dad has with me about that house. No, I'm not aware of anything. You don't know that you're paying rent to John Pryor? What? All she knows is that her dad's told her she can live there. Okay. She came off as being not credible at all. When all was said and done, her credibility was just in the toilet. So she described her mom prior to the death of Tammy as being exhausted, and that she had started going to bed earlier and earlier, sometimes like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night. And I'm thinking, how do you know? You don't live there. How do you know when she went to bed? And how do you know when you know what? Sometimes I'll go to bed at 8 o'clock at night. That doesn't mean I'm sleeping. I might be playing Xbox. And we know from prior testimony that mom was on her phone playing Candy Crush till about 10:22 that night. I love Candy Crush. Wonder what level she got up to. Anyway, doesn't mean she's asleep or exhausted. Just means she wants some privacy because Chad wasn't in the bed with her. He didn't like her playing games. So she's in there by herself playing Candy Crush till 10:22. Now we know that probably within the next hour she is killed because of the phone pings that were testified to. I'm just going over some other things in my mind that hopefully the jurors are thinking about when they're hearing this testimony. So started going to bed right after dinner. Then I don't know how she got away with this testimony. She is wondering, it crossed her mind that maybe she's just recently been diagnosed with sleep apnea. And sleep apnea, if you have sleep apnea, true sleep apnea, you do feel exhausted during the day, like you're just not getting enough rest. And she goes, I was just diagnosed with that, and it's a familial thing, and my grandfather had it, so I'm wondering if she's the familial link, and maybe she had it too. There's nothing in the medical records to suggest mom had sleep apnea. But she believes her mom had anemia and maybe sleep apnea. And there's nothing in any of her medical records about anemia either. She goes, well, your mom just went to the doctor. This is cross-examination. Your mom just went to the doctor. No, she hadn't been to the doctor since 2017. She hurt her wrist. Didn't she go to a doctor? You know, a doctor, an MD? Yes, she did. No mention of anemia. No. Then they talked about these herbal supplements that her mom liked to treat her own illnesses with these supplements. And her favorite was colloidal silver. And she described it as drinking something that tastes metallic, like you're drinking it out of a metal container. Speaking of which, I need coffee with my colloidal coffee. Anyway, that's what her mom would drink. And since she had drank it on occasion too, to cure her illnesses, and she was asked, did it cure you? And she goes, I don't know. I don't know. Because that's one of those things where you don't know if you're under the weather and you take this, you don't know if you were going to feel better anyway, or if it was the colloidal silver. How do you know? She said that her mom bruised very easily. Like if she was carrying a box, she gave this example. If you're carrying a box, she would have bruises on her from carrying the box. And then she goes on to testify that the day before she died on a Saturday, October 18th, going into the 19th. So October 18th was a Friday. On that day, Emma worked at the same school as her mom. She saw her mom carrying a box because they were going to have this book fair the following week. So her mom was getting ready for this book fair, and in preparation, she'd have to set up her workspace as a store. And so she had to remove her personal things. So she was carrying this box. I don't know what was in the box. We don't know if it was books or her personal things or whatever. Could have been books. She's in her classroom. She sees mom carrying this box, and she's struggling to carry this box. She's carrying the box. So she stops what she's doing, and she goes out and helps her mom carry the box. Well, I would hope my son would do that for mom. Let me get that for you. You know, why are you doing that? Welcome to getting old. Doesn't nobody died from carrying a box. I'm sorry. That wasn't like the nail in Tammy's coffin. You carried a box, you're dead the next day. No. So then there was this discussion about a Fitbit. And speaking of which, I need to put mine on. I'm using a ring now instead of a Fitbit. And there's a reason. I'll tell you in a minute. So there's a discussion about Fitbit. She talked about how her mother and father-in-law, Joe Murray's parents, and her mom were having this competition to see who could get the most steps. And her mom wanted to win. Now, Joseph also talks about this, about how his dad was recently getting into shape and he was getting more steps than Tammy, and Tammy was jealous. So she wanted to beat his dad. So Emma said that while mom was playing games at night, she would sit in bed and she would shake her hand. Because this is the movement when you've got that wristband on, the movement that it thinks you're taking steps. And that is not untrue. Well, the fact that she saw her might be untrue, but that is true. That you can do that and it will record it as steps. You know what will also record it as steps? Crocheting. Crocheting will record. Look how many steps I'm getting. Yeah. So, and yes, that is this is a new addition to my recording. Let me know your thoughts, your comments. Obviously, I'm not doing it live while I'm talking to you because I cannot craft and talk at the same time. But I can get my steps in. But this doesn't count crochet. So that's why I wear it. Anyway, so she says, "Oh yeah, no, I saw her. She would lay in bed and she would be doing this while she's playing game. You don't even live there." And she did say, she did admit on cross-examination. So you were watching your mom after she went to bed? No, I wasn't. No. Excuse me. You said you saw your mom doing this. I think not. Then she was asked about this training for a 5K race. Now, we heard this from a few different witnesses that Tammy had expressed to her colleagues at the school that she was training for a 5K. And Emma says, "No, I was the one training for the 5K. But I invited my mom and she said, no, in fact, I will never be training for a 5K. So what it was, and Joseph testified to this in his testimony, her husband, he said that he was sponsoring a race to raise money for this charity. And the other sponsor was Chad Daybell's book company, Spring House or whatever it is. And Tammy was a volunteer, so she had on jeans and a volunteer T-shirt. She was not running that race. Now, we've heard from a witness that a neighbor that he went over there because he saw that something was going on in the park, and he saw Tammy Daybell cross the finish line with her daughter. So Emma says, well, no. She said towards the end of the race, there were people that were, lagging behind you. I used to run 5Ks. I actually ran half marathons. And I was one of those lagging behind people. One of the last to cross the finish line. I'd cross the finish line, but it took me a good long time. So the volunteers would encourage you as you're getting closer to the finish line. They'd come on, and they'd walk with you because by then you're walking or crawling. And so maybe that's what he saw. Maybe that's what people saw, that she was helping someone across the finish line. Okay, if you say so. Then she talked about the Zumba. She said her and her mom were both overweight by their standards, apparently. None of them were overweight. And this is the point where John Pryor says, I've been criticized for my comments on weight. Yes, you have. I mean, he was fat shaming. I covered that a few episodes ago. Tammy wasn't petite, was she? No, she wasn't petite. She was, nobody's supposed to be petite unless you're petite. Us women, some of us have big bones. We're large women. Anyway, she said that during the Zumba, they would go to the back of the class because that's where people that weren't, that's to me, going to the back means you don't want anybody else to see what you're doing or copy what you're doing because you can't keep up. Well, I just wanted to be in the back because I want to make sure I saw everybody because I just didn't want people watching me. It wasn't that I couldn't keep up. I just didn't want people watching me. So they would go to the back because she said Zumba is an exercise it's crafted for people of all skill levels. So if you can't do like the maximum part of the workout, there's an adjustment you can make. And I understand that. I get it. But nevertheless, Mom was getting through it. She says, no, she was winded and, okay. Then she talked about her mom taking some self-defense classes that the LDS offered through some of their activities. And so she learned how to defend herself, and she would practice on her Wii. She loved playing computer games or games. And she had a Wii and she played a kickboxing game. Okay. I'd be winded too if I was playing Wii on a kickboxing. Okay. Or kickboxing on a Wii. Then there was a discussion about life insurance. So we know that school year in September, a month before she dies, the life insurance is increased to $80,000 or by $80,000. And she said, she was asked, did your mom consult with your dad before buying this insurance? She goes, no, there was a presentation made. My mom and I were there because, they work in the same place. My mom and I were there and we decided we were going to do this together. We both, it was very cheap. We were going to buy it. She goes, I didn't get the maximum. I just got a little bit more because I couldn't afford it. But we both applied and we got the insurance. So no, we did not consult with our husbands, was her testimony. Then on cross-examination, she said, were you aware that your dad signed the application for this insurance? And she goes, no, that was for his increase in his insurance. And Lindsay Blake's like, she gets the exhibit. She shows the jury. No, it's the application for Tammy's life insurance, the one that increases by $80,000. It was signed by Chad Daybell. So right there, this poor woman, Emma, is caught in a lie. Then there was this whole thing about searching for the wind the day before the last known sighting of Tyler Ryan, September 7th. There is a computer search on Chad Daybell's computer of the wind direction. She's like, I did that search. Well, wait a minute. You don't live there. No, but my parents, they had a Mac and they had a Windows computer and they kept them right together because my mom liked features of both. And I was going to have I had an event coming up she never said what this event was the next day. And I wanted to know, because you can't rely on the local news because we're kind of not where the local news is. So I decided I would research what the Wednesday was going to be the next day for her event. So, and this is a woman who couldn't even tell north, south, east, and west. She was asked by Lindsay on Cross, so where's your house in relationship to your dad's? Is it north, south? She's like, confused. In any case, she was planning an outdoor event, so she needed to know. So she's at her parents' house again. You got your own house, honey. You got a new baby. Why are you at your parents' house watching mom do this with her Fitbit and playing on dad's computer? She did say that I guess she had an older phone that you couldn't do searches on. I mean, that's what I was thinking. You got your own phone. Why aren't you searching? You're home with the baby, your newborn. Why aren't you searching your phone? Anyway. So then she was asking about the book company. And this is another thing I wanted to point out. I would be exhausted if I had to work full time on a book company and put in all these hours, 40 hours a week at a second job. Mom had 2 jobs. Of course she was exhausted when she got home. And later on, Emma's going to testify that mom took care of the pet cemetery. That was mom's thing. So now she's got 2 jobs. She's taking care of the pet cemetery. Yeah. And she's exhausted? Yeah, she's exhausted. Welcome to middle age. Hello. Anyway, so she talked about the book company. She said dad was the creative side of the book company, mom was the logistics side. So dad would go out and get the talent and sign them for book deals and writing his own books. Mom would design the covers of these books and do all the bookkeeping, the taxes, all that. Yeah. Now, here's some testimony that was really interesting, fascinating. I want you to listen to this. Take a listen.
Hear it, but I know
father's faith.
I would say very traditional in what he believed, and he would research very carefully, and he wanted to stick to as close as the original form as he could. So he was really interested in teachings from Joseph Smith and Brigham Young and similar early leaders of the church.
Would it be fair to describe your father as a fundamental?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And you didn't share his religious beliefs?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Some of them you were.
Yes.
Some of them that are consistent with your current LDS faith. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. But you would describe him as someone from days gone by, foregone?
Yes.
Okay. Very traditional?
Yes.
Okay. Literalist?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Looked at the words and applied the plain meaning of the words?
Yes.
Okay. And there's some theories that you didn't necessarily agree with him. Is that correct?
Yes.
Would that be a subject of discussion at the dinner table when you were growing up?
Yes.
Okay. And do your brothers and sisters all share your father's fundamental beliefs?
I think they're more similar to me, that there's elements that they might feel drawn to and others that they don't.
Are there elements of your father's faith that you don't necessarily agree with?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. There's been some discussion about the idea of light and dark. Can you describe to me what you understand to be the concept of light and dark?
The phrases good and evil would be talking about your actions, what you chose to do, where light and dark would be talking about your motivations. Light, it means that you're acting selflessly like the Savior would be, and dark means that you're selfish, focusing inward like Satan would be.
Okay. Was this something that your mother, from your discussions with your family, shared with your father in terms of her beliefs?
Yes.
So would it be fair to say that your mother's beliefs, to your knowledge, were also of the fundamental or traditional node?
Probably more so than him.
Okay. Did she ever have discussions about putting numbers, death percentages or numbers, whether how light and how dark a person would be?
Yes.
Did she do that frequently?
Yes.
Okay. Was it particularly about anybody, or was it as her day-to-day activities, she would make comments about that?
As she came across people and observed things, she would mention it.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Sustained. Okay. Now, you had an occasion personally to deal with your mother's rating system in terms of dark. Is that correct?
Several.
Okay. And was there an occasion when your mother engaged in a practice of trying to rid some sort of dark entity from you?
Yes.
And can you describe what that was about?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Oral. Can you describe what that was about, please?
I have struggled with anxiety for years, and it was feeling very unmanageable. And I felt like there was a being that was with me. And I talked to my parents about it. And my dad cast it out using the power of the priesthood. And then I felt better afterwards.
Okay. When you say the power of the priesthood, what do you mean by that?
The power of God given by the laying on of hands.
Is that something that has to be specially endowed upon something, or is that some sort of a patriarchal role that someone gets as head of a family household?
Any eligible man can have it
Okay.
if they're living and keeping covenants in the church.
Okay. And on issues of covenants in the church, your father's not a perfect person, is he?
No.
And you're aware of a relationship that had been going on, and I'm not trying to embarrass you or cause you some difficulty, but you did subsequently learn that your father had a relationship with another woman,
Yes,
and that was not an appropriate relationship.
it was not.
Okay. And at this point, it was, for all practical purposes, having a relationship with Lori Vallow while still being married to your mother.
That's correct.
And would you agree that not anybody's perfect?
Yes,
You're not perfect.
no,
None of us are perfect.
nobody.
Yeah, she believes the same thing as her dad. Oh my God. This destroyed her in my eyes. I'm like, you believe what? You were possessed by who? By what? But Lindsay pointed out, Lindsay Blake on Cross, you didn't die after that was casted out, did you? No, I didn't die. Yeah. Then she went on to testify that she actually felt like there was an actual person trying to control her. I don't know if that was part of what you just heard. There was an actual person trying to control her. But Dad was able to cast it out. He laid on his hands, and then it was very common for men who are practicing the covenants in the church, the males, the women can't do this. Blessings are very common. They'll give you blessings. Then she was asked on Cross, well, your dad was having an affair with Lori Vallow, right? Well, yeah, that's adultery, right? Is that practicing the covenants? No. Then she was asked about her dad's books. She said, I've read every one of my dad's books, and she did not interpret them as fiction. Okay. In other words, you believe the same thing your dad believes. She was asked about the autopsy. She said, I don't believe in autopsies. So she was asked by Lindsay on Cross, didn't the officers call you and offer to come sit down with you and go over the results of the autopsy? Yes, they did, but I didn't want to sit down with them. And they said, well, they told you they wouldn't, no interview, we just want to go over the results. And she's like, nope, I didn't want to listen to them. Didn't want to listen to she goes, I wanted to hear the autopsy results, but not from them. Then the day that her mom died, there was a family discussion. The family was discussion regarding the funeral. She said the funeral home, and she mentions the local one, gave them a choice of Saturday or Tuesday. Now, Mom died on a Saturday, so it was that Tuesday or the following Saturday. But they didn't have the funeral at that home. The funeral wasn't at that home. The funeral was back in Springfield. The only thing that mortuary or person that offered you Tuesday and Saturday, the only thing he did was embalm your mother, and then someone else drove her back to Springfield, a different mortician. So, yeah, her credibility is terrible. Then she says, Mom, wouldn't she maintain the pet cemetery and she would have noticed a disturbance? Well, obviously it was disturbed. We know it was disturbed, and we know she didn't notice. Or if she did notice, she was ignoring it, and she thought it was the raccoon. She was asked about her dad's feelings at the funeral, his emotion, his emotions. She said he cried, but he was happy at times. So, he had mixed emotions. And she said the reason he was happy because we believe that once you die, you're in a better place. So, and she was asked, but what if didn't you hear the email that your dad sent Lori Vallow that, he was sad, but not for the reasons that people think he was? And she says, yeah, I heard that. So it was pointed out by Lindsay Blake on Cross that she had daily phone calls with her dad. She calls her dad every single day or goes to visit him in jail. He's been there for 4 years. So she was asked, did Chad ever tell you what to say, to testify to? No. Are you sure? No. I can't wait for the rebuttal because I have a feeling we're going to hear some jailhouse phone calls or some recordings of visits. Because apparently she was asking, Chad never told you, your dad never told you not to cooperate with law enforcement? No. Dad never told you that you might want to say certain things? No, no. Your dad never told you that mom would make up her own moves for Zumba? No, no, he never told me that. Your dad never told you that he would watch her in bed doing the Fitbit thing? No, no. I can't wait because if they've got proof of this, I want to hear it. Yep. I want to hear those jailhouse calls. And I think that's coming. Okay. So Lindsay played the body cam footage again. And this is the body cam footage of the day that Chad Daybell was arrested, the day that children were dug out of his backyard, exhumed out of his backyard, and he tries to flee. She's like, no, he was going to see his lawyer. Well, didn't he deposit $8,000 into your account that day? Yes, he did. A little bit more motivation to lie because now you're living in dad's house. He's giving you his money. And I think during that conversation, there was some talk about money in one of the drawers. And he was like, make sure you give the $30 a month to Lori. Like, this is a conversation you're having with your dad. And she was asked, did you ever ask him, where are the children? And she said, yeah. Well, what did he say? That they were in a safe place. And where were they found? In your dad's backyard. No further questions. Okay. Then we get the testimony of Garth. He's the oldest of these 5 children of Chad and Tammy Daybell. He describes himself as being shy. He was the only child at the time living at home. He is actually, at the time of Tammy's death, had 2 jobs. During the day, he worked as an 8th grade science teacher. And later on, he testifies regarding the faith. He believes in evolution and he teaches it in his class. So that summer, he was also working as a scare person at the haunted house. So, in other words, he would put on these weird costumes and be in the haunted house and he would jump out and scare people. That's shy guy. Yeah. Well, I mean, I believe that that's what he was doing, but I don't believe that he's as shy as he says. I just think this whole family just doesn't have any personality. These 2 kids have been exposed to their dad their whole life, his wacko. Oh, that was the other thing that I missed telling you about. Emma said that her mom, oh no, you heard all that about the light and the dark, and her mom could assign death percentages and yeah, okay, anyway. So Garth was asked about this whole raccoon thing, and John Pryor was trying to make hay out of this raccoon thing. Like, first of all, raccoons are nocturnal. You don't see them in the daylight. And Garth confirmed that. I only saw them at night. Versus this email where Chad's killing it during the day. And then Garth said, we buried them behind this shed in a compost heap. Not where he buried Tylee Ryan, near the fire pit. Then he talked about, yes, mom was getting tired very easily. She was having fainting spells in conjunction with kneeling. Honey, that's not unusual. You're cutting off some of your blood supply when you're kneeling. That's why I don't kneel. Of course, it's a positional thing. Your blood pressure is going haywire when you're kneeling for that long. You stand up, all of a sudden your blood's rushing down to your lower extremities. You're going to feel faint. It's not going to kill you. So on October 18th, he came home from his first job working as a science teacher that day. This is the day that Tammy died, that night going into the 19th. He comes home that afternoon and he says mom was sitting on the couch and she said she didn't feel well. She was really tired. And she said, can you go get takeout? So he goes to McDonald's. And John Pryor, the defense attorney, wanted to make it sound like it's so far to go to this McDonald's, and it's such a small town. And he's like, no, we have 2 McDonald's. And Pryor looks really surprised. You have 2 McDonald's? Yeah, we have 2. We're getting big now because everybody's coming to the land of the, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so he got Mom her favorite quarter pounder with cheese, some fries. I got her combo. You're not feeling well, but you're going to eat a quarter pounder with cheese and some French fries. Okay. That might be what killed her. No, it wasn't. Anyway, so he goes to the haunted house thing. He says he gets his second job. Then he gets home around 1 a.m. Now he describes it logistically that his bedroom was right across the hall from his parents' bedroom. Maybe estimated it to be 20 feet apart. So when he got home, he could hear his dad snoring. So, and he could see the door to their bedroom was open. He could see 2 silhouettes in the bed. So he figured they were asleep. So he goes to bed. He's woken up the next morning early when he hears his dad say, Garth, I need you to get up. So he gets up, he sees his mom on the ground, and his instinct is, oh my God, she needs help. So he runs over and picks her up and puts her back in the bed. And in doing so, realized she wasn't breathing. Her color's off. She's dead. That's awful. Then we fast forward to May 7th of 2021. Now, this is really interesting. At this point, now he's gotten married to a woman named Claire. And they're not living there. His sister Emma and Joe Murray are living in the house. But he's getting ready to go to work. And he walks out of his house, and the police said, we need you to come down to the police station with us. They get him some McDonald's when he's at the police station. You want breakfast? Sure, I'll have some McDonald's. And then they proceed to ask him, he says, to change his story. And what it was is they didn't believe something he had said before. And we're going to get to that. And we need you to tell the truth. Not change your story, just tell us the truth. He was there for about 5 or 6 hours. Apparently his wife had come down too. She was in a different room. And as he walked out, there had no charges at the end of that. But then he had to appear. Also, he had requested a lawyer. And we're going to hear from that lawyer. He testified as well. He gets a public defender. He comes and he was questioned for that 5 or 6 hours with the public defender. And then he has to appear in front of a grand jury. And they went back and forth on cross. Was it the first grand jury? The second? There was 2 different grand juries. The first one that indicted Chad and Lori, and apparently recommended that a second grand jury session be held regarding further questions that they had. But my impression from the prosecutor was that it was the same grand jury, just 2 different sessions of this grand jury. So the second grand jury, they were focusing on him having committed perjury.
Do you recall talking to an individual named Micaiah Bagelin and telling him you found your mom dead in her bed and your dad gone?
I don't recall talking to him about that.
Do you recall talking to Cara Briggs, who's now Cara Daybell, and Emma Moss about finding your mom on the couch?
I told Kara. She's now my wife.
And there was talk of some testimony at some grand juries. Do you recall that? Sorry, let me back up. Let me rephrase that. Do you recall counsel asking you about having testified at a couple proceedings?
Sorry, I don't quite know the rules, but when you were talking to me about Kara and Emma, can you repeat that question? I don't know if
Yes. Do you recall telling Cara and or Emma about finding your mom on the couch?
I did not tell them that she was on the couch.
Do you recall having talked to one or both of them?
I do. I had told them that the night before I had seen her on the couch as she said goodbye to me.
And if they were to say something different, would that surprise you?
I mean, I've heard that before.
With respect to the faith thing, he said he believed in evolution. He was asked about, do you believe in light and dark? He goes, well, in the sense that there's, good and bad. Yes. Then Then we heard from Garth's attorney, Forrest Fisher, and he said, this was his first time with a grand jury proceeding. So he was, he was present with Garth for the questioning. He also went with him to the grand jury, but they're not allowed in. The attorneys don't come in. So he had to sit outside. So he said, the only thing I told him was that this might be a trap. Just answer the question. Don't volunteer any information. This is what you always tell your clients. Don't volunteer. Don't go, yes, but, my mother's father's, you don't want to do that. You just want to say yes. But he had to sit outside. And he also told his client, if you have any questions, you can stop a grand jury at any point and say, I need to consult my lawyer. And you can go outside and consult with your lawyer. That was his testimony was like 5 minutes. Then they put Joseph Murray on the stand, and I kind of went over the bulk of what he had to say. The morning after her death, when he and Emma go there that morning, and he said that Chad was kind of wandering aimlessly around going, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? He was asked about tools in Chad's shed. He said he was allowed to borrow those tools and the shed was never locked. So that's the testimony. The defense attorney finished his direct examination. Now the prosecutor will do their cross-examination of Joe Murray this morning. And I will recap that for you tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody. Let me know what you think about the crochet. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Take care. Bye.